Hello, how's it going everybody? It's me, Luke, and today is going to be a little bit of a different video because, as I'm sure among you, there is quite a few of you out there who like to use Instagram, and some of you, let's say hypothetically, may have children who are also old enough to use a smartphone and navigate their way around the internet, and maybe you allow them to use Instagram. Might not be a good idea. Just watch.
So Instagram has been implicated in a Wall Street Journal investigation. It's an exclusive investigation that they've published recently into child trafficking being conducted on Meta's services. This is going to be a pretty dark segment, I'm afraid to report, but we're going to have to look at some of this stuff. And
don't worry, Connor, you can't wrap us up in cotton wool when talking about this.
I'm going to allow Meta a little bit of leeway on why some of this stuff is impossible to play whack-a-mole with, but then also some of their other efforts into what they're policing on their platform demonstrates that they have the will to crack down on certain stuff that is far less egregious than child exploitation materials, but they have chosen not to. So apologies, it's going to be a bit intense, but this is a very important topic to talk about. Speaking of institutions that corrupt and exploit children, if you would like to pay us £5 a month to keep all of our content going, keep the lights on, and you'll access our premium content, you can get podcasts such as this, where Josh and I went through the data on daycare and how it is going to be a demographic time bomb that's going to destroy the West, because in early childhood experiences, it engenders adverse relationship formation patterns that mean throughout life kids are more susceptible to anxiety disorders, attachment disorders, and how this is only going to get worse because the government continually sponsors childcare under the idea that Biden says, where they're not just your children, they're everybody's children. And unfortunately, some people on Instagram have that same mentality.
If there's one person I don't want claiming my children, it's Joe Biden.
Yeah, so this is the Wall Street Journal report, and I'm going to go through some of the findings on this. It's going to be a fair bit of reading, but strap yourselves in. So the following investigation was a collaboration by the Wall Street Journal and researchers at Stanford University and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. The method was that they set up test accounts by researchers, and they viewed a single account in the network, and they were immediately hit with suggested for you recommendations in Instagram's algorithm, which feeds you more of what you want to see, of purported child sex content sellers and buyers, as well as accounts linking to off-platform content trading sites.
By the way, before Connor and Harry get further into this, I just want to say, I've seen this. I see this all the time. I actually spend, not every day, but about half an hour every other day going on Instagram and reporting these accounts because they are everywhere. They just, they are everywhere. So they're not isolated. They're not part of a niche demographic of hashtags that you need to be following or searching to find them. They just popped up for me one day, and they can pop up for your children as well. So that's why this is important, and you need to think twice about letting your children use Instagram and any other social media, but mostly Instagram for this reason. But carry on.
So dark web websites that were saying
Let's just say that again.
Child sex content in Instagram's algorithm, which feeds you more of what you want to see, of purported child sex content sellers and buyers, as well as accounts linking to off-platform content trading sites. So dark web websites that were saying we can supply you with child sexual exploitation materials or access to the children themselves. Following just a handful of these recommendations was enough to flood a test account with content that has sexualized children. The Stanford Internet Observatory used hashtags associated with underage sex to find 405 sellers of what researchers labeled self-generated child sexual material, or accounts purportedly run by children themselves, so either children who have been given unsupervised access to the internet that are...
By the way, that is just said. When I was during one of the times when I was going on Instagram, reporting these profiles, trying to get them deleted, I actually found one. But I'm not going to talk about that on YouTube. If you want to hear about it, then I'll make a video about it on Patreon, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. It was harrowing. But if I can find one, then
self-generated child sexual material, or accounts purportedly run by children themselves. So,
It was. The one I found was. And he was, as I said, Patreon.
either children who have been given unsupervised access to the internet that are putting photos of themselves online,
Which is always a terrible idea in the first place.
or adults posing as the children, exploiting children, selling them to other predators, which is evil. Saying they were as young as 12, according to data gathered via Maltego,
The one I found was.
a network mapping software. 112 of those seller accounts collectively have 22,000 unique followers. So this is pretty sizable industry that has just been allowed to go on unchecked.
This is a
unfortunately.
very sad thing that seems to happen quite frequently with all social media platforms because, of course, before Elon came in, it was a big thing with Twitter as well. I don't know how similar it is to what was going on here with
The difference between Instagram and Twitter, though, I never saw it on Twitter. And never saw it on Facebook either. Or it was in very limited instances. Like, you might find the odd group, but it's been banned or shut down. But the difference between Twitter and Facebook and Instagram is, on Instagram, it is just absolutely, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. Audacious. You know, it's as easy to find as your favourite athlete, your favourite singer's profile. They're just there. Public.
Instagram, I guess we'll find out. But it does seem to be just a big blind spot a lot of these social media companies have trouble dealing with.
So with the Twitter example, the strange thing, and I was going to mention it a little bit later, but the strange thing with Twitter is that at the top, the executives of Twitter had voiced political opinions that might be more acceptable of sexualizing children. We do remember Yoel Roth had his PhD thesis, which said that children should be allowed to use gay hookup app Grindr. I would
Just try and think what could go wrong there. And when he said particular political affiliation or whatever, that would be more in favour of that. It's definitely not this side, is it? Oh wait. Oh, that's my right, but your left. Okay, it's definitely not this side, is it? You don't find people on that side in favour of that shit.
might be more acceptable of sexualizing children. We do remember Yoel Roth had his PhD thesis, which said that children should be allowed to use gay hookup app Grindr. I would, of course, not allege that Mr. Roth had deliberately avoided policing that content on his platform, but it's just a strange thing to say. I think with Meta, this is more of a infrastructure issue of where they've outsourced a lot of their duties to police content on the platform to automated algorithms rather than human content reviewers, for reasons I'll get into later, because they lost a lot of money doing it that way before. So,
and that brings me on to something else that I'll just mention briefly. You know, when on Facebook, if you say something that's out of the realm of what the programmers working on the Facebook AI, algorithm AI, have programmed for it to understand as acceptable and politically correct, if it flags you saying something that falls into the category of what they've programmed that AI to think is falls into that category, you have no chance of fighting against it, because it's an AI that you're talking to. It's been pre-programmed to notice them, and it will never accept an explanation. I mean, when was the last time you interacted with a human support on Facebook when you had a problem? It's not. It's an AI. It's an algorithm. That's just a side rant there.
it may be an instance of them being afraid to be sued by human content moderators, and that's allowing this content to fall through the cracks.
Oh, all right.
So the researchers found that Instagram had enabled people to search explicit hashtags such as, and I'm sorry that I'm going to have to read these out, warning, hashtag pedo whore and hashtag preteen sex, and connected them to accounts that used the terms to advertise child sex material that was going on sale.
You'd think it would be very easy
To police something like that, yeah.
algorithmically to just say, okay, if a hashtag includes these kinds of words or these kinds of letters in sequence, just take care of it.
Yeah, and again, you're going to be playing whack-a-mole endlessly because they're going to start substituting certain letters for numbers or characters. But it's better to do that than just allow it to exist on the platform unabated.
Which they
because
have done.
Kids are being harmed measurably here, and predators are getting their rocks off. The Instagram account's offering to sell this
This is where it gets absolutely awful. This is the point that it should start warning you. But
here, and predators are getting their rocks off. The Instagram accounts offering to sell this illicit material generally don't publish it openly and instead post menus of content. Certain accounts invite buyers to commission specific acts, like it's some form of underage OnlyFans. And again, we know that OnlyFans had underage members on that, and no action's been taken against them either. Some menus include prices for videos of children harming themselves and imagery of the minors performing sexual acts with animals, according to the Stanford Internet Observatory. At the right price, children are available in person for quote-unquote meetups. Current and former Meta...
that is what you are exposing your children to if you let them use Instagram. Quote-unquote meetups for the right price. Yeah. Still want to just give in to your, whatever age kid moaning, oh, mummy, let me use Instagram. All my friends use it. Still want to give in?
Children are available in person, according
job.
to the Stanford Internet Observatory. At the right price, children are available in person for quote-unquote meetups. Current and former Meta employees who have worked on Instagram child safety initiatives estimate the number of accounts that exist, primarily to follow content like this, is in the high hundreds of thousands, if not millions. A Meta spokesperson said the company actively seeks to remove such users, taking down 490,000 accounts for violating child safety policies this January alone.
So 500,000 accounts in January 2023 taken down for violating their standards on child safety in 1 month. And that's in January 2023. Imagine what it was like during the height of lockdown when all children were at home. And, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Carry on.
In 1 month, nearly 500,000 accounts were taken down. I understand it's difficult, but again, you've taken no action to ban these specific hashtags with which the material is being used to be traded. So, really big holes in your strategy here.
The only silver lining that I could even remotely fathom in this is that I hope that a few of these might be catfish accounts run by policing services, federal agencies to try to catch predators. That's the only thing that I could think maybe.
But if they're generating the material using actual...
either way, it's pretty horrible.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Instagram said its internal statistics show that users see child exploitation in less than 1 in 10,000 posts. Okay, that's still really hard.
So, during this survey that they did of Instagram, they saw... what was it?
Less than 1 in 10,000. Instagram said its internal statistics show that users see child exploitation in less...
So, Instagram's internal review says that the average Instagram user will see a child exploitation post 1 in 10,000 posts. How many people are on Instagram? A few billion. And there's probably about 20 million or so of those that post 4 or 5 times a day. I don't know what the exact number is, but how many posts is there on Instagram a day? It'll be in the hundreds of millions. There's over 1 trillion emails sent every day. And that's email. So how many people are... and this is all Instagram posts, so stories, videos, everything. 1 in 10,000. Every 1 in 10,000 posts falls under the category of child exploitation. Yeah. At this point, you should be questioning whether you want to be on Instagram or not. Never mind your fucking child.
Less than 1 in 10,000 posts. Okay, that's still really high. I understand it's really difficult to have on the platform, but 1 in 10,000 for a platform that also, remind you, isn't allowed to post pornographic content. And there are some adverts which skirt the lines. There are some posts which skirt the lines from adults. I understand
Instagram is it's soft pornographic material, a lot of it.
But Twitter is allowing users to post actual pornographic material, and yet it has a better handle on child exploitation material in the Elon regime than Meta does. So what's going wrong here? In 2022, the non-profit the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children received 31.9 million reports of child pornography, mostly from internet companies, up 47% from 2 years earlier. So it seems that under lockdown, where certain children were at home with their parents a lot more, they were more liable to exploitation. We heard reports of this from the UK social services that said we weren't allowed to visit people because they were using COVID quarantine as an excuse to not have check-ins, and some children were abused or died under those conditions. I wouldn't be shocked if there's similar instances happening here with kids trapped at home with abusive parents because they have nowhere else to go when schools are shut and services are discontinued. Meta accounted for 85% of the child pornography reports filed to the centre, including some 5 million from Instagram. And Meta are aware of the content of these hashtags because it says Instagram has permitted users to search for terms that its own algorithms know may be associated with illegal material. Because when you search for those hashtags that I read out earlier, a pop-up screen comes up and it warns users that these results may contain images of child sexual abuse.
So that completely blows the whole possibility of Instagram still, we didn't know this was happening. So all that Instagram have done to tackle this is when you search particular terms on Instagram that these disgusting fucking animals are using to find this material, a pop-up appears saying, warning, these results may contain images of child sexual exploitation. Would you like to continue or see resources? So they know it's happening, they're not stopping it, and now they're basically just doing what they do on BBC iPlayer. Every now and then, before I try and start an episode of whatever I'm trying to watch, a thing will pop up saying, do you have a TV license or not? I just check yes every time and it lets me watch. It's the exact same thing. How is that going to stop anybody? So Instagram know about it, and it's amazing. It's amazing. They know about this, and they're still letting it happen.
With the legal material, because when you search for those hashtags that I read out earlier, a pop-up screen comes up and it warns users that these results may contain images of child sexual abuse. They know they're associated with it, and yet they haven't banned it. They just warn you, you might need to see some naked kids here. Do you want to click continue? If you click continue, yes, then you can go to the corners of the internet that trade children for sexual abuse purposes. Why is there a warning? Why aren't these just gone? There's no excuse here. They are offered two options for users: get resources or see results anyway.
Two options for users when that pop-up comes. Resources or see results anyway.
In response to questions from the Journal, Instagram removed the option for users to view search results for terms likely to produce illegal images. The company declined to say why it had ever offered the option in the first place. Whereas Musk's attempts to clean up Twitter are comparably working. So the Stanford team that I mentioned earlier found 128 accounts offering to sell child sex abuse materials on Twitter.
By that part where he said they've now stopped the ability to see results, that's not what it sounds like. I'll tell you why at the end of the video.
Twitter, less than
They're still there. It's still just as easy to find them.
a third of the number they found on Instagram, which has a far larger overall user base than Twitter. Twitter didn't recommend accounts to the same degree as Instagram and took them down far more quickly. And bear in mind, this is after in 2021, Twitter's trust and safety team were alerted by a victim of child trafficking about 3 or 4 years after a video had been recorded of him being raped, that the video was still on the platform and it had been reviewed hundreds of thousands of times. And Twitter said it does not violate our sexual content policy, so they had to get sued for that to be taken down.
So the sad fact of the matter is, with any social media company, the possibility of this happening is pretty certain.
Yeah.
If you're running it, creeps will find it. Creeps will try and find ways to exploit it. It's how you respond to it. Of course, as with everything Elon Musk has done on Twitter, I'm sure that his response to this has not been perfect, but it seems that Instagram has barely made an attempt at all.
Well, they knew it existed. They let you access it anyway, and it's not like a speech issue that they were far harder on before. They've censored people for hate speech, but they know child sexual exploitation material exists on their platform, and they just do an age verification check, or do you want to see this check? Whereas it's always illegal in pretty much every territory you could see of.
That is absolutely I can't tell you how many times I get a warning off Instagram for words that I've said to these people. But they don't ban these people for literally selling this kind of content publicly. I mean, do I really have to explain what's wrong with that?
How are Instagram not complicit in distribution here?
They
How are they
absolutely
not going
are.
to face any kind of legislative or financial consequences for knowingly allowing the distribution of child sexual exploitation material?
That's why. Also, I would absolutely love to see the results of an internal investigation into the people working on this for Instagram who have been buying the content themselves.
Or financial consequences for knowingly allowing the distribution of child sexual exploitation material on their platform. Putting up the warning means you know about it. It's not like you're in an eternal crusade where some of the predators might be able to misuse your platform. They knew it was on there and took no action. And they don't want to answer questions about it. It's just unfathomable to me. I know I'm beating the dead horse here, but anyway. In response to questions from the journal, Meta acknowledged problems with its enforcement operations and said it has set up an internal task force to address the issues raised. Child exploitation is a horrific crime, the company said, adding, "We're continuously investigating ways to actively defend against this behavior." Meta said in the past 2 years, it had taken down 27 paedophile networks. That's a good start, and is planning more removals. Since receiving the journal...
So, I mean, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's okay, but it's still... that's still evidence of a bigger problem. So, Instagram have said in defense of this article that has exposed just how much of this is going on their platform, that in the last year, their investigation teams have taken down 27 paedophile networks. Networks, not 27 paedophiles, 27 paedophile networks. And that's while they're not making any effort at all to police this content. They've put it in the hands of AI, mostly, because they won't allow the human moderators to do it, because when they've done it in the past, they've sued the companies for PTSD from the content that they've actually had to watch before they banned it. So, if they've taken down 27 networks in the last year, when they're not even making an effort, how many are still out there? And that, again, brings it to my original point why I'm making this video. I'm making this video for the parents of among my subscribers and followers whose children might be badgering them to let them use social media, and I'm making this to hopefully discourage you from ever giving in, because as far as I'm concerned, if you've got children that are under the age of 17 use social media and something happens to them, you're as complicit in it as anybody else.
27 paedophile networks, that's a good start, and is planning more removals. Since receiving the journal queries, the platform said it had blocked thousands more hashtags that sexualize children, millions of posts, and restricted its systems from recommending users search terms known to be associated with child sexual abuse. Alex Stamos, the head of the Stanford Internet Observatory, and Meta's chief security officer until 2018, so he has some insider knowledge there, told the journal Meta's outsourcing of their moderation duties to automated systems meant lots of these hashtags and child exploitation materials are overlooked and left up on the platform. So not only did they know that this material existed and added a warning, but they've overlooked the human element here. They've not subjected some of their human moderators to this material, and they've outsourced it to AI algorithms which aren't catching the stuff. And one of the reasons they've done this is quite a while ago, they got sued for $52 million by some of their human moderators over PTSD because some of the material that they saw was horrific.
Gave them traumatic stress disorder.
And so this is why I opened with the preface. I'm somewhat sympathetic to some of the engineers inside Meta that are trying to deal with this problem because they've got a counterbalance. Okay, do we want to subject humans to this material? Because even though they might be more accurate at getting rid of it, they might be traumatized enough, one, to sue the company into the dirt, and that's going to be unavoidable. And two, it's going to screw up their lives seeing all of this horrific material on a daily basis.
It's a pretty horrible example, but it does remind me somewhat of, this is a musical example. Did you ever hear of the singer Ian Watkins of
No,
Lost
I'm afraid
Prophets? He's a scumbag.
I won't lie, when I first watched this video earlier, I couldn't believe that. Because Connor Tomlinson, he is, for people on the political side that this content is directed to, and, that's, it's no secret. He is one of the most well-informed people in the country, and he's younger than me. So when Harry asked him if he'd ever heard of Ian Watkins, and he said no, I was quite surprised by that. It was a huge story in the UK when it was happening. Especially for people that were well into politics. It was everywhere. So that did surprise me, but fair enough.
Hear of the singer Ian Watkins of
No,
Lost
I'm afraid
Prophets. He's a scumbag who is rightfully in prison right now. Shall we say that back in 2012, 2013, he was arrested after it was found that he had convinced some, vulnerable fans. I don't want to describe them in such sympathetic terms after what they did, but he convinced some vulnerable fans to allow him to do.
That's another thing. When it was I remember reading on Facebook about that story, the amount of people I saw defending the parents. Saying, oh, how can you talk about the parents like this after what he's done to their children? They let him. They allowed him to talk them into it. So, no sympathy there.
He convinced some vulnerable fans to allow him to do certain things with their infant children that was caught on camera and webcam. And during the trial where he got 35 years for it, I think 35 is getting it lightly, but that's the English justice system for you.
Bring back capital punishment.
The jury was shown the footage of what had happened to help them with their deliberations when they were deciding on whether he was innocent or guilty, and they had to be given some form of post-traumatic stress therapy after they were shown it because of how horrific the imagery was. It is understandable that the human cost is terrible when you're trying to fight this thing as well for the people who are involved in it, just because of the fact that it is like the Nietzsche quote. It's, you stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back at you. It's awful to have to take part in this sort of thing. But at the same time, sacrifices have to be made if you want to be able to police this kind of material.
Yeah, and this is also the issue. Of course, human moderators are never going to be infallible, but AI algorithms, if there are gaps in the code, they're going to start overlooking this material and allow it to proliferate on the platforms. And it leads to instances like this where Instagram becomes a global child trafficking hub. And I don't think that's an exaggeration, particularly when they knew it was going on and only issued a token warning that allowed you to access the material anyway.
I do want to be clear as well. I doubt that this is anything that Mark Zuckerberg wants for his platforms either.
No, I wouldn't. No, I would never say that. And
I'm not a fanboy for
Mark.
Mark Zuckerberg or anything, and we make jokes that he's a cyborg or a lizard person or something, but I do think he has enough humanity to recognize the absolute monstrous nature of this.
Well, he has his own kid.
Do you know what? I wouldn't even say that. For me, Mark Zuckerberg is one of the most. I hate him. I absolutely hate him. He has no humanity whatsoever. The biases that he's implemented into the algorithms of his platforms, it makes it absolutely impossible for people of a particular wing of politics or any other major social justice issue or topic to have a voice. Unless you are on a particular side of bias on these subjects, you are not going to be able to voice an opinion on these platforms. And he has facilitated that and put it into his platforms. So, maybe, maybe, I don't think you could say, he wants this on his platforms, but he knows about this. Or at least somebody at Instagram know about this. They know it's happening. They put a warning when you're searching the content saying, do you still want to see it? So they know about it, and they still didn't stop it. And this is his platform. So I don't think you can make an excuse for him either.
Anything, and we make jokes that he's a cyborg or a lizard person or something, but I do think he has enough humanity to recognize the absolute monstrous nature of this.
Well, he has his own kids, and I'm sure that as a dad, it hits particularly close to home the fact that this material is existing on his platform, despite never wanting it to. And I don't know if this would have even reached his ears to an executive level.
Yeah, this is true.
This is just something for some team.
The investigation's in the public news sphere. I'm pretty sure he's heard about it now, Connor.
Trust and safety or whatever that's currently siloed. But just some details from this lawsuit, and you can understand why they might be a bit discouraged from employing people to go through and remove this material. In 2022, Meta had paid $52 million in settlements to moderators who had suffered PTSD from their exposure to, quote, posts depicting acts of suicide, murder, child abuse, and other disturbing content. As a result of the case, every content moderator who has worked for Facebook since 2015 will receive at least $1,000. In addition, any worker who has a diagnosis of PTSD from work is eligible to receive up to $50,000 in damages. Erin Elder, who was assigned to a child abuse review team, was working as a content moderator at Facebook when she realized she needed help. She appealed to her manager to see a counselor to help cope after reviewing a disturbing post, footage of a teenage girl being raped by a group of men in the middle of a field. The manager did not have an answer, she said. About a week later, she was told there was a counselor available to her for her to talk to once every 3 months. It was clear we needed more support than we were receiving, Elder said. So I sympathize with the Meta team here. But also, as you said, the fact that the algorithms aren't up to scratch means lots of this material is going to fall through the gaps. And the Journal points out in its article, there's basically no excuse for Meta not to go on a crusade against this stuff, because Meta has done this sort of work in the past, censoring things, to suppress account networks it deems harmful, such as with accounts promoting election delegitimization in the US.
There you go. They're able to provide censorship services where they think is necessary, which means that either they were so focused on the election stuff that they let this slip to the wayside, or this was never something that was a priority for them in the first place, which if you are running some kind of social media network, you need to be aware that this can happen, this will happen, and you need to have contingency plans in place.
As I was saying earlier, the amount of times that I've been on the receiving end of this on Facebook. I mean, a couple of years ago, I simply made a post about Tom MacDonald. I don't know if you know him, but he's a Canadian rapper and he makes music about... it is mostly conservative, from a conservative point of view. I made a post about him and I got banned for a month. Just for making a post about him, praising his music and his work. And if you look at my account enforcement history on Facebook, it's endless. I'd be surprised if last year I was not banned for more months of the year than I was unbanned. But this, oh no, we can't do anything about this.
To prevent it from happening.
Exactly. There was I didn't get the article up, but the New York Post reported quite a while ago that I covered in a segment, I think, on Biden's Patriot Act 2.0, where Facebook handed over to the FBI millions of unfiltered messages that related to January 6th or the 2020 election that were seen with a conservative bias without any kind of legal injunction to do so. They had no mandate. They were just working with the FBI and said, here's a giant info dump of all these messages. See if you can find anyone from January 6th from that. So we're perfectly transparent to get people on a trespassing charge when they were let into the Capitol by police, but they aren't cracking down on child sexual exploitation material and actual children being trafficked on their platform. I don't really have any good news to report here other than, one, don't let your kids access Instagram. Two, there should be some kind of legal consequence for the people that allowed this to go on their watch with only a warning. And three, social media platforms need to do a much better job at preventing the exploitation of children.
So there you go. So yeah, I just wanted to play this video for you. I was trying not to react too much because they said everything that needed to be said, and it was just me adding a little bit extra on top. But the fact is, Instagram, it should be a no-go zone for your children. And if you still let them on there, then I'm sorry, you need to seriously have a good long think about your efforts to protect your children. Because it is not a place that they should be. Let's have a look at some of the comments. I made a comment on here as well. We'll get to that. Here we go. I've been permanently banned from every Meta platform for having an unpopular opinion. If only I had been a child predator, I could have stayed on. Now that's a joke. But in this context, it's actually true. And that tells you where we are. The internet is not a babysitter. Do your job as a parent. If you can't commit to raising your kids, don't have them. Oh, should I read this out for people who can't see it? I'll do it anyway. I actually have 2 Instagram accounts that I use specifically for searching out these profiles and reporting them. 2 reports from 2 separate accounts is always much stronger and more likely to have action taken on it. And I can absolutely tell you that nothing has changed. Yes, when you search particular terms, no results come up, but if you word the terms differently, the same results still come up, and they are all still there. They're literally advertising it. They make stories with a list of about 6 to 7 different file sizes of child exploitation material from 5 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes, with prices next to them, usually ranging from $5 to $70. Doing this, I've reported every account I've ever found for every child abuse option on the report tab, but Instagram have only managed to take down about 4 of them in the last month. Bear in mind I've reported about 70 accounts in the last month. So, I mean, this is another thing. People report this stuff all the time and they're still not doing it. And that's the failing of the AI. Because an AI, the AIs that they use to moderate, it's like on Reddit, they use AI on there as well as humans. Because some subreddits are so big now that they just don't have time to do it. One person, I mean, have you ever started a Facebook group? I've started a few groups over the years, and I've had a couple that reached just 300-400 people, and I simply did not have the time to do it. I needed to bring other people in. Some subreddits have millions of people, so they have to use AI, and you put the words in for what it should look out for. But I don't know. But I will expand on this subject in future videos. I'll actually go onto Instagram and I'll just show you some of the things that pop up without you even looking for them. But anyway, I thought it was important to make this video because, as I said, I've been seeing this for a long time now. I knew it was happening. I've tried to tell people about it, and I hope the parents that I've told have bear it in mind. But now, the Lotus Eaters podcast have now made a video about it, so hopefully it's going to become a much wider known thing. Hopefully now it'll get out there further into the public sphere and become more well distributed knowledge among people. I mean, this video, it was released 2 hours ago. It has 8,200 views. So do what you can to support this video, view it, like it, comment on it, share it, and get it out there to as many people as you can, because it is very important. Instagram is a place where, I mean, Instagram is Instagram. It's a social media platform. It's where people go to follow their favourite celebrities, see what they're up to, but it is simply not a place for your children. So pay attention to this video. Well, it's the end of the video now, but I hope you've paid attention, and I hope it's changed your mind and made you think twice about giving in to your child badgering you about letting them on. So, share this video as well. Make sure people see it, because it's important. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.